Hi guys, it's Leo from MediaWay here with another exciting tutorial for you. Today we're going to make this title sequence from Harry Potter movies. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to cover weight painting, we're going to cover making your own materials, we're going to cover camera movements and animation, and it's all going to be done in Eevee for a change. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is open up our web browser and download the Harry Potter font. It's 100% free. You just click on the download link here and you can download it to your computer. Open up a new scene in Blender, press A to select everything and X to delete everything. The first thing we're going to do is add the Harry Potter text. So it's Shift A to add, go to click text, you can just see it there. Press Tab to go into edit mode, change this so it says Harry Potter. Then we're going to Control A to select all, and if you click on your font settings and then click where it says font, you want to change your regular font. We're going to open up this Harry Potter font that we've just downloaded. So if you just click that, click open font, and instant Harry Potter. Okay, I'm just going to make a couple of little tiny changes. We'll put Potter onto the next line and we're going to just move it across a little bit so it sits in that nice little space between Harry and Potter. So press Ctrl A to select all, scroll down under paragraph, where it says line spacing, just reduce that down a little bit so it just sits a bit nicer in. 0.7 works well. Press Tab to go back into object mode. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to add a tiny little bevel on the outside of the letters. So if you click under your font settings, go to geometry, and where it says bevel, just add a little tiny bit of bevel, and we're going to set the resolution to 1 because we want kind of quite a nice sharp bevel on it. We'll flip this, so R to rotate, X to rotate on the X axis, and then 90, and now it's sort of facing forward, which is what we want. We're going to add in a camera, Shift A to add a camera, and we're just going to press G to grab it and then press Y to grab it on the Y axis. Now if you press 0 on your number pad, you can actually see exactly where it is. So we're just going to shift it a little bit more on the Y axis out, and I just want to center it. So I'm just going to tweak these settings, X and Z, just so it's roughly centered. Okay, that's perfect for now. The next thing we're going to do is add a nice chiseled bevel to the Harry Potter lettering. This is what is going to lift it and make it look like the Harry Potter lettering you see at the cinema. Well, firstly we need to convert it from a text, so right click and convert to a mesh, and then we're going to add something. So if I press Tab now, you can see that the mesh is not very clean. It's kind of got all these sort of triangles on, which we don't want. They're not going to be any good for weight painting. So what we're going to do is use the remesh modifier. So click Add Modifier, then Remesh. I'm going to set it to Sharp. I'm going to click Remove Disconnected, and we're going to change the octree depth up to, I think we'll go for 9. That should give us a nice enough geometry. And then we're going to apply the modifier. Okay, so now if we tab into edit mode, with lots of vertexes we can use to help sculpt the lettering. Okay, so press 1 on the number pad to get orthographic front view. I'm just going to hide the camera so we can't see it, so it's not in the way. And now we're going to swap into weight paint mode. Now weight paint mode can be a bit confusing sometimes, but all it's doing is assigning a weight to each vertex from a number between 0 and 1. And the higher the weight on each vertex, the more it's going to be affected by the modifier that we're going to add soon. So a few settings, I'm just going to show you quickly. You can just draw straight on to your mesh like that, but we don't want to do that. I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo it. So we're going to change a few things. So firstly, we're going to stabilize the stroke. So click on stroke and click stabilize stroke. We're also going to change the fall off. So instead of custom, we're going to have a linear fall off. That's going to give us a nice sharp chisel. We also need to set the fall off shape to projected. Under your stroke, also make sure your spacing is set to 1%, so it's very close. Now you can press F to adjust the size of your cursor. So just adjust your size of the cursor to match the width of the H letter. Now if you click and hold down your left mouse button and start dragging, you can actually see we're starting to draw a line onto the lettering. I'm just going to do the H, then we'll show you what that looks like. So adding the stabilization means you can wobble about a bit with your mouse and draw freehand in a way that might be difficult otherwise. So we'll just make a start, and I'll just quickly pop back and show you what we're working towards. So if we go back to object mode, nothing's happened yet, but if we add a modifier, a displacement modifier, and where it says vertex group, click that and you click group, which is the group we've just made, and put the strength down to try 0.1 first. You can see we're starting to get that lovely sort of chiseled look on the lettering, which is going to look really cool. So what we're going to do, press 1 again on your number pad. Let's go back to weight painting mode, and we can continue the weight painting now. So what I would do first is do all the broad strokes. So set your cursor size to something a little bit larger and just trace all the sort of the larger parts of the letters first. So make sure your cursor isn't larger than the letter. So just tweak it down if it is. Start with your cursor right inside the blue area and slowly drag your cursor down. Be nice and careful to get those nice sharp lines. It takes a little bit of practice, but it's not too tricky and it's quite fun. So you want to make sure you're starting and ending so the green part of the weight paint doesn't go right to the edge of the letters. Pop back into object mode if you want to see what it looks like. We can go back into weight paint mode now and just add in some extra details with a smaller brush just to accentuate the serifs. Next we're going to add a simple material. So click on the material button and click new. Then we're going to go into the shading editor, and what we're going to do is quickly just change a few settings. We're going to add sort of more metallic-y colour to this, sort of a, a goldish colour, something around there. We're going to make it more metallic. So push the metallic slider up quite a lot. Take the roughness slider down to get a bit more highlight on it. Press Shift and A, search for a Voronoi texture. And what we're going to do, we're also going to add a bump node. The bump connects to the normal. Connect the color to the height input on the bump node. You can see we started to get some textures already appearing. So change this to 2D and increase the scale. You start to see we're getting this kind of slightly irregular polygon pattern on it. 80, 100, maybe something like 200. Let's try 200. Okay, so we've kind of got like a pitter patter, kind of got almost a slightly hammered feel on the text now. Click here to call your material gold. Pop back into layout mode. We're going to change some of the render settings. So Eevee is fine for this. Switch ambient occlusion on, bloom on, screen space reflections on. And to get down in color management, just change the look to medium high contrast. We're going to click on the world settings and take the strength down to 0. So now if we go into view mode, everything's black because there's no lights in the scene. So we're going to add some scene lights. So just click into this mode here, Shift A, add in an area light. We're just going to point it at the sort of the top right of the Harry Potter text. So G to grab, R to rotate, side mode by pressing 3, R to rotate again, and now 7 takes it into top view, and just going to G to grab again. We're just going to position that light so it's kind of on the top right of the Harry Potter. So now if we go into viewport shading, you can see we're starting to get a little bit of light on the character. Press 0 for your camera view. We're just going to increase that light. Click on the light settings and just increase the power till we start to get something that looks a bit of light. We're going to also add another light in the opposite direction for the Harry Potter text. So with your light still selected, press Shift and D, move it across, press 1 for front view, R to rotate all the way around, and just grab it and just move it across a bit. 3 for side view. In fact, 7 for top view. We're just going to rotate it a little bit more so it points onto the Harry Potter text better. So now, just increase your light settings until you find something that you're happy with. Now, because we're going to have quite a few lights in the scene, we're going to move these into a new collection. Hold down the Shift key and select both lights in your scene outliner. Move your mouse back into the main viewport and press M. We're going to move these lights into a new collection called Potter Lights. Press OK. Right. The next thing we're going to do is add some volume clouds. So if you haven't already enabled Blender Kit, now's the time. Go to Edit, Preferences, search for Blender Kit, and make sure that is selected so it's ticked on. Press N on your keyboard to make sure you can see these options and click Blender Kit. Click on Materials and then search for Cloud. Alright, we can see we've got a range of clouds here, so we're just going to make something for the cloud to turn into. Let's just pop into a different view. Shift A, add in a cube. Just grab it. Maybe we want to scale it a bit and scale along the x-axis. So that's S to scale, X to move along the x-axis. And what we're going to do, we're going to click where it says Procedural Cloud. We're going to drag it and drop it onto this cube. And you can see we have a little cloud. So what we're going to do, we're going to duplicate this cloud several times and try and shape it around the Harry Potter. So press 1 to go into front view, maybe S to scale, G to grab, Shift D to duplicate. So now what we're going to do, we'll move all the clouds into their own collection. So click on the first cube and the last cube that you've made. M to move, new collection, clouds. Harry Potter's lost in the mist, so we're going to grab it. So we're going to grab, with all the clouds still selected, press G to grab, press Y to grab them along the Y axis and just move them back a little bit. We're going to add some lights to light up the cloud a bit better. So Shift A, add in another area light. Scale it up a bit. Just move your viewport round. So this light is for the cloud. So we're going to grab it, move it along the Y axis. Just press 0 to get into your camera view. Scale it a bit more. Grab it, move it up the Z. So this is going to be lighting the top of the clouds. And we're going to add a slightly blue colour to this light to give it a bit of contrast. Up the power just a tiny bit. Duplicate this light, Shift D, Z to move on the Z, R to rotate, Y to rotate along the Y axis, and we'll rotate it so it's more or less facing upside down. So what we're going to do, we're going to make the scene 200 frames long. And we're going to add some lightning into the clouds. So what we'll do, let's move those two cloud lights into the clouds. We're going to do a new collection, and this is going to be called Lightning. So we're going to add Shift A, add another area light. This one's going to be quite a bit brighter, so set that one up to 150. 7 for top view, G to grab. And we're just going to move it to a nice place over the clouds because it's got to look like lightning. So what we're going to do, we're going to keyframe the brightness of this to make sure the lightning comes on and off. So pick a frame, say frame 20. We're going to keyframe this with the little button here next to the power one. So first start by setting your light to 0. Press the keyframe to add a keyframe to that. Move along 3 frames. You can do this with the cursor button. 1, 2, 3. Set your light to 150. You can just type it in if you want to. Click on the keyframe to add another keyframe, and you'll see now in the timeline animates this coming up. Go forward another 3 frames, 3 or 4 frames, doesn't really matter. Set your light back to 0, add a keyframe. It's back to 0. So now the light comes on, comes off really fast. So what we'll do with this light, we'll actually copy these keyframes. So select them all, so make sure they're all yellow. Press Shift D and just drag them along the timeline. You can do this a couple of times. Select them again, Shift D. Shift D again. It doesn't matter. So basically this will mean the lightning will happen a few times. So we're going to move the cursor to where the lightning's on. Now we're going to duplicate this light, so we've got a few different lightnings in different places. The final things we're going to do, just to smooth off some of our sculpting a bit, we're going to add in a subdivision surface modifier. That just tightens up our shading a little bit. And we're going to animate the camera. So select your camera back on. Set a keyframe. What we're going to do, we're going to move the camera along the y-axis. So start with cloud. So basically, what I want the camera to be in, more or less, if I just move the camera around a bit, is basically in between the letters to start off with. So when we pull the camera back, it starts with clouds and you start to see the letters revealing. So we're going to press I to add a keyframe, a location keyframe for the camera. And then we're going to come back to frame 160. Let's go back to the camera view. Press 0. We're going to move just the Y location back. So the last frame kind of looks about like that. I'm going to press I to add another location keyframe. And now you can see we move through the letters now with the lightning going off. Go to your output properties. Set your frame rate to whatever you like it to be. Choose a place to store your file. I'm going to stick mine on the desktop for now. I'm going to change the file format to FFmpeg video. Encoding needs to be set to MP4. If you want to increase the output quality, you can do. Perceptually lossless is nice. And there's no audio at the minute, but you can add that in a video editing package at the end. Go to render and click render animation. You can download the finished file in the description below. I'll see you in the next one.